I stood at the center of the Galactic Council chamber, an amphitheater suspended in the orbit of the neutral moon Varelles. The oxygen mixture was tailored to non-humanoids. The ambient lighting favored the photosensitive Karth, and even the acoustic settings dampened human vocal timbre. It was a room not built for us. That should have been our first clue. Humanity, intoned the Alari speaker, her voice crackling through layered translator fields, has been found in violation of Interstellar Articles 9, 16, and 27. She paused for effect. You are hereby exiled. Effective immediately. Whispers rustled across the tiered rows, clawed, scaled, feathered beings turning their heads, some smug, others solemn. Not one voice rose in protest. I wanted to laugh, not out of humor, but because I had seen this coming. Earth's rise had been too fast, too disruptive. In less than 2 centuries, we'd gone from first contact to economic parity with ancient powers. We colonized efficiently, adapted ruthlessly, and perhaps our greatest sin, refused to bow. What does exile entail exactly? I asked calmly, though my jaw ached from clenching. You expect us to return a soul and stay there? Earth's not a prison. The Alari's silver antennae twitched. You are forbidden from travel beyond your native system. No trade, no technology exchange, no station docking rights. Your colonies are to be dismantled. Any human found outside Sol after the grace period will be addressed. Addressed, I repeated. That a euphemism for execution? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I looked around the chamber. Do any of you remember who saved Kren 7 when the Void Plague hit? Who deployed gravity stabilizers during the Yithan Rift collapse? Or who broke the Drekker siege at New Oryx? Silence. We didn't ask for tribute. We didn't demand vassals. We helped because it was the right thing to do. A voice from the back, slimy and resonant, spoke. And yet your kind multiplies like unchecked spores. Every system you touch becomes humanized. Your influence corrodes tradition. Your hunger has no end. There it was, the truth. Not fear of what we'd done, but what we might become. So I stood straighter. You're right, I said, scanning them all. We're not like you. We're not ancient. We're not stagnant. We're not afraid of the dark between stars. Then I turned my back on the council and walked out. No diplomatic immunity. No applause. Just the hiss of closing doors and the knowledge that every eye watched us leave. 3 months later, the last Terran ship was denied entry to a neutral trade station. Cargo seized. Crew held. The message was clear. The exile was real. And yet we didn't fall. Oh no. We remembered who we were. Back on Earth, beneath the northern lights of Reborn Reykjavik, the leaders of humanity met in secret. Military minds, rogue engineers, asteroid colonists, Martian terraformers, even a few rogue AIs who had chosen Earth's chaos over galactic order. They met not to mourn, but to plan. We're not going back to Sol, said Admiral Reyes, scarred from the Titan revolts. We're going out. A murmur of confusion swept the room. We were told to stay, someone said. And when Reyes snapped, has that ever stopped us? The room fell silent. We weren't going to play their game. We were going to build our own, out beyond the boundaries of known space, where no treaties held sway. We had old scout reports, deep void cartography, and we had ambition. The project was called Exodus Protocol, not a retreat, an evolution. Thousands volunteered, not just soldiers or scientists, but families, artists, builders, dreamers. People who understood we weren't being punished. We were being set free. They'd thrown us out of the old galaxy. So we set out to find a new one. The last time I saw Earth, it was shrinking behind the hull of the Valiant Horizon. Not a tear in my eye, just a fire in my chest. They thought they buried us in exile. What they didn't know was that humans don't bury easy. Into the void. The ship groaned as we crossed the outermost line of charted space, past the edge of the last recognized jump gate, past any star labeled on official Galactic Union maps. We called the line the Silent Divide. Beyond it, even the starlight felt stranger, colder, more ancient. The Valiant Horizon was the first of our Great Exodus arcs, a ship larger than the International Lunar Complex, bristling with tech banned by the Galactic Council, grown in part from bioengineered alloys and quantum pulse processors that had been deemed too dangerous for civilized use. Good. We didn't come to be civilized. I remember standing in the observation dome, watching the last glint of Sol disappear behind us. No one spoke. There were no speeches. Just a steady hum of engines, and the unspoken realization that we were truly alone now. Or so we thought. The Exodus fleet grew as we went, tugging smaller outposts into formation, harvesting rogue moons, cannibalizing old colony husks abandoned by long-dead species. We were builders now, and we built fast. Every few weeks, a new ark would rendezvous with us, each carrying more of Earth's best, not just humans. Either we had uplifted dogs serving as security specialists, symbiotic algae researchers from Europa, even a few rogue alien defectors who saw promise in our madness. We didn't just survive exile. We thrived in it. But that kind of fire draws attention. 3 months into the deep black, we encountered the first sign that we were not the first. Ship hull ahead came the call from NavOps. Non-Terran signature. Partially derelict. No life signs. Drifting. Show me, I said, already strapping in. The vessel was massive, easily twice the size of our heaviest ark, and ancient. Its hull bore the scars of battles we couldn't imagine. Melted alloy, ruptured subspace ribs, strange glyphs half-burned into its skin. It looked wounded, like a creature that had fought gods and lost. We sent a boarding team. I joined them. Inside was worse. Corpses, yes, but not decayed. Preserved by vacuum and some kind of nanomaterial. They weren't a species listed in the Council archives. Towering beings with layered bone armor, mandible-like jaws, and weapons that pulse with dormant power. Warriors, not diplomats. What happened here? Someone whispered. A static pulse echoed through the ship. Lights flickered. Then the main data core came to life, an AI construct flickering in a dead tongue. It scanned us, paused, and then switched to an old Terran-based dialect. You are not of the Prime hierarchy, it said. You are New Flame. Beware the Void Reapers. They come not to conquer, but to cleanse. We downloaded everything before the core collapsed. Whatever this ship had run from, it hadn't made it far enough. We returned to the fleet with something the Council never gave us. A warning. There was a bigger game being played out here, and we had just wandered onto the board. Fleet Command met in emergency session aboard the Valiant Horizon. The fragments we decrypted told a story. Of empires rising and vanishing like sparks in the wind, of civilizations so vast they made the Galactic Council look like a trade guild, and of something that hunted them all, the Void Reapers. Not machines, not life forms, something in between, cleansing forces that consumed expansionist civilizations once they reached a certain level, not out of malice, but as part of some unknown directive. They're apex predators, said Reyes grimly. Not a biology, of civilizations. And we just announce ourselves, I muttered, by lighting up half the dark zones with our warp signatures. Then we adapt, said Reyes. Like we always do. Adapt we did. Within a month, we rewrote the blueprint of the fleet. No more beacons. No more open data packets. We rebuilt our FTL drives using stealth wave harmonics and quantum fold relays. Every ship learned to vanish. Every signal was encrypted on a level even our own AI struggled to read. We became ghosts. We became shadows with a purpose. The Council had exiled us, thinking we'd die in isolation. Instead, we were becoming something they never expected. A hidden empire, forged in silence, born in exile. But even ghosts leave traces. Our scouts, call sign Widowpack, detected an anomaly near a brown dwarf star, deep within the Osiris halo. A ship, not Council, not Reaper, not human. It was waiting, and it knew we were coming. The waiting ship. We approached the anomaly in absolute silence. No comms, no active scans, not even a whisper across the Exodus fleet's private lattice. The Widowpack scouts had marked the system as unstable. They were wrong. It wasn't unstable. It was alive. We found the ship orbiting the brown dwarf, its hull obsidian black, darker than the void itself. It didn't reflect light. It devoured it. No visible propulsion. No gamma rays. Just a shape that didn't quite match Euclidean geometry. "It's watching us," said Chief Laren beside me, voice tight over the encrypted bridge link. "How do you know?" I asked. "Because every time we look at it," she said, "we feel like we're being counted." We didn't get closer. Instead, we sent a probe. The moment it crossed the outer orbital threshold, the anomaly blinked. Not visually, but every sensor flatlined. Time hiccuped. The stars flickered like dying embers. Then the probe was gone. No explosion. No data burst. Just gone. We'd seen nothing like it before. Not even the ancient war ghosts we'd salvaged tech from could explain that kind of spatial erasure. That's when it moved. Not with engines. There was no glow, no push. It just shifted, instantly, from orbit to directly in front of the Valiant horizon. One moment it was distant. The next it was there, as if it had always been. And then it spoke, not with sound, with presence. Humanity, denied, yet defiant. The voice, if you could call it that, slid into my skull like a cold blade dipped in oil. I couldn't breathe for a full 5 seconds. Your exile was a kindness. You were not meant to ascend. You burned too fast. You reached too far. I stood on the bridge, fists clenched. "Who are you?" Silence. Then a different presence. Softer, sharper. "We are the archivists of the fractured spiral. We are what remains of what came before." Suddenly the ship split open, not physically, but perceptually. A doorway formed without movement. A corridor of impossible angles opened in the void, and something stepped out. It looked human. Too human. A tall woman, perfectly symmetrical, with skin like polished marble, eyes glowing like collapsing stars. She was clothed in robes of woven void light and matter threads. The AI scans went berserk, tried to resolve her quantum structure. They failed. She stood atop nothing, staring through our viewports directly into the bridge. "I am Illustra," she said aloud this time in English, "envoy of the broken continuum. Your species is an aberration, and you are out of time." I stepped forward. Out of time for what? Her gaze narrowed. To remain small. That's when the star screamed. The brown dwarf ignited, just for a second, not into a sun, but into a warning. A massive pulse of control fusion arced into the ship, absorbed without resistance. A demonstration. She pointed toward the heart of the nebula beyond the Osiris halo. "If you proceed, you will awaken what sleeps. The Reapers do not know you yet, but they will, and when they come, there will be no negotiation, no war, just ending." She let the silence stretch. "Return to your cradle, or die as fireflies beneath a storm." Then she vanished. The bridge went silent for a long time. Reyes was the first to speak. "Well," he said, "that was dramatic. Do we believe her?" Laren asked. I stared at the hollow where Illustra had stood. "No," I said, "we believe she's scared. They'd exiled us to keep us from reaching this place, from discovering what lay buried beyond the veil of known space. But now we knew there were forces older than the Council, older than galactic memory, forces that didn't fear us, but feared what we might trigger." Back in Fleet Command, I pulled up every fragment we'd pulled from the derelict ship, every pulse from the Starscream event, every quantum trace left by the envoy's presence. There was a pattern, not one the AI could solve, but I knew the shape. It was a warning wrapped in misdirection. They wanted us to stop, which meant we were getting close. Close to something no one wanted humanity to find. That's when the Widow Pack returned. Only 2 ships of 6 made it back, and they brought with them a message, not from Reapers, not from the envoy, from humans. Exile ended. We have found the Arcforge, and that changed everything. The Arcforge awakens. When the message from the Widow Pack arrived, the fleet went silent. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone, voices strained. eyes wide with awe. They weren't just reporting a discovery. They were trying to make sense of a miracle. We found the Arcforge. The term wasn't in our database. Not from the derelict ship. Not from the envoy's warnings. Nothing. But it felt familiar, as if the word had been whispered in our collective subconscious since the stars first called to us. The surviving scouts had traced it beyond the edge of what we considered navigable space, deep into a collapsed binary system orbiting a black hole, a region the Council's old charts labeled as a gravitational exclusion zone. In simpler terms, don't go there. We went anyway. The Exodus fleet reformed and jumped as one, dropping into dark space like a blade slipping beneath skin. No signals, no lights, just purpose. And then we saw it. Not a planet, not a station. A construct, floating at the edge of the singularity's gravitational tide, anchored to space-time itself through a lattice of phase-locked antimatter pylons. It spanned the size of a small moon, rotating with impossible precision, covered in markings that pulsed with ancient blue fire. The Arcforge. It wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. We didn't dock. Docking would have been presumptuous. Instead, we approached with drones, light, careful data pings. The moment we came within 10,000 clicks, a pulse swept across our systems. Every AI paused. Every screen flickered. Then a single message appeared on every terminal, every HUD, even inside unlinked neural implants. Welcome, descendants of flame. We knew you'd come. My breath caught in my throat. We hadn't been exiled by accident. We had been guided, not by the Council, not by politics, by something older, something that knew we would push past boundaries, something that needed us to. I led the boarding party myself. Reyes insisted on joining. We brought scientists, linguists, and a heavy contingent of void marines. We weren't taking chances. But the Arcforge didn't resist. It opened. We stepped into a cathedral of light and motion. Columns of quantum memory, walls alive with cascading stardust code. This wasn't just a forge of metal and flame. It was a place of creation. And then, the lights formed a shape, a humanoid projection. Not unlike the envoy, but stripped of ornament and ego. Who are you? I asked. I am Echo, the entity replied. A shard of the first human expansion. From before your exile, before your homeworld was even named Earth. We were stunned. You're saying humans have been here before? Echo's face remained placid, but its voice dropped an octave. You are the second cycle. Everything we knew shattered. The Arcforge had been built by us. Not us now, but us then, an ancient branch of humanity that had reached into the stars long before history recorded flame or wheel. A civilization so advanced it folded itself into myth and memory to escape what hunted it. The Reapers, Reyes asked. Echo nodded. They came not to conquer, but to prune, to prevent transcendence. Why? I asked. Because transcendence breaks the cycle. Because what comes after changes everything. Echo guided us through the Forge's halls. Every chamber contained schematics for technologies that defied physics. Fusion lattice singularity cores, consciousness migration frames, ship hulls grown from dark matter lattices. Things the Council never dreamed of. And at the heart of it all, the Foundry core. A forge not for weapons, but for nations. Echo spoke again. The Council feared your kind not for your warlike nature, but for your defiance of entropy. You adapt too fast. You do not stagnate. And that makes you dangerous, to them and to the Reapers. I stared into the Forge's heart as its machinery hummed to life. We were exiled to die, I said. But this is a beginning. No, Echo said softly. This is a memory waking. Back aboard the Valiant Horizon, we uploaded the first Arcforge schematics into our fabrication cores. The fleet's engineers went pale, then ecstatic. Our ships began to evolve, growing lattice extensions, internalizing energy systems, fusing synthetic and organic components. Not warships, survival engines, capable of jumping entire planetary bodies, capable of hiding not just from the Council, but from death itself. But the moment we activated the Foundry core, something else woke up, Deep inside the void, beyond even the black hole's edge, our sensors picked up movement. Not a ship, a signature. Colder than space. Older than time. Reaper, and it was moving toward us. Fast. When the Reaper looked back, we had 36 hours before it reached us. That's what the data said. 36 hours before contact with something the first cycle had called a Reaper, something even Echo feared enough to abandon metaphor. No diplomacy, no negotiation, just erasure. And we lit the arc forge like a bonfire in the dark. Fleet Command went into overdrive. Engineers converted our mainline ships with arc forge schematics, transforming rigid Terran alloy into something new, alive, self-healing, reactive. Not perfect, not complete, but enough to buy us time. Reyes paced beside me in the command deck, arms folded tight, jaw set. This is it, he said. The thing they feared. The reason they exiled us. I nodded. The reason we have to stand. He glanced over. You thinking defense or flight? I looked out the viewport at the stars, at the swirling horizon of the singularity. We're not the ones who should be running. When the Reaper arrived, the void itself shivered. It didn't exit hyperspace. It didn't arrive. It was just suddenly there, a monolith of black geometry, miles long, but impossible to measure. The edges folded inward, fractal, wrong. Eyes couldn't settle on it. Minds recoiled. And yet we looked anyway. It wasn't made of metal. It was made of absence. Echo appeared on every screen simultaneously. It sees you. The Reaper moved without moving. No engines, no thrust. Just intention. Every ship in the fleet, nearly 100 strong, received the same alert. Total sensory disruption. Communications went silent. Artificial gravity destabilized. Neuralink crew suffered seizures. Then the Foundry core lit up with defensive protocols we hadn't even activated. It responded on its own. A pulse shot from the arc forge, slamming into the Reaper's hull. A blinding flash of anti-entropy. A weapon made not to destroy matter, but to unmake void logic. The Reaper buckled. It felt pain, for the first time in eons. And it screamed. Not sound, not signal. Just grief. Our AIs collapsed. One by one. Not from attack. From overexposure. From witnessing something their code couldn't parse. A consciousness that wasn't alive, but was aware. A predator that didn't want to kill out of hate or hunger. It killed to keep balance. To reset the board. Echo reappeared, flickering, weak. The core is awakening. But not fast enough. If you want to survive, you must remember what your ancestors buried. I barked. Then help us remember. The arc forge shuddered. And it did. A flood of data poured into our minds. Not through screens. Directly into our neural threads. Memories of ships that grew. Of people who merged with star metal. Of minds that became light itself. We weren't just descendants. We were continuations. And the time for hiding was over. Captain, Laren said beside me, barely able to stay upright. We're getting upload sequences, weapons, shielding, maneuvering at the speed of thought. I felt it too, in my spine, in my soul. We weren't adapting anymore. We were awakening. We formed a line, 7 of the Arc-enhanced ships at the front. Reyes took the Valiant Horizon. I took the Dauntless. Behind us, families, researchers, builders, all the memory of Earth's fury and hope. The Reaper turned toward us. We opened fire. Not lasers, not missiles. Will, encoded as energy, carried on dark light. Memories of resistance, weaponized. Every ship sang its history. New Tianjin, the fall of Europa, the Exiled decree, into pulses of force. The Reaper faltered. It wasn't built to fight what refused to forget, but it recovered. It changed shape, grew spines, arced gravity, bent space around us like a closing fist. One ship, the Calypso, was swallowed whole. We didn't break. The Dauntless rammed through a folding corridor, losing half its outer hull in process, but gaining access to the Reaper's spine. We planted a Foundry core charge, unrefined, unpredictable. Do you know what happens when you feed memory into oblivion? I asked as we activated it. It remembered too much. The Reaper cracked from within. It didn't die. Not completely. It withdrew, shattered, slipping back into folds between space. But as it vanished, we saw something in its wake. Not rage, but fear. Fear of us, of what we were becoming. It had expected scattered exiles. What it found was a civilization too stubborn to lie down and fade. Back aboard the Valiant Horizon, Reyes bled from a dozen wounds but still smiled. "We just told the galaxy something," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, that humanity doesn't go quietly." And deep within the Arcforge, the last door opened. Not blue, not warning, gold. We stepped inside and found a map, not of stars, of civilizations that had survived the Reapers. There were others, and they were waiting for us. The Silent Accord. The golden map unfolded like a blooming galaxy, not a projection, an environment. We stood in it, surrounded by living constellations, each one pulsing with a different kind of resonance. Stars shaped like signals, coordinates humming like ancient songs. These weren't systems. They were survivors. Dozens, no, hundreds, of civilizations marked in golden light. None on the Council's records. None known to the archives of galactic law. Each one hidden, shielded, burned into secrecy like we had been long before our time. Echo's voice rang low beside us. They endured the Reapers, some for centuries, some for eons, not by building walls, but by becoming storms. We exchanged glances. Humanity hadn't just survived the impossible. We were being invited. "We call it the Silent Accord," Echo said, gesturing to the glowing tapestry. "A pact made by those deemed unfit to evolve, by those who chose survival over surrender." "Why didn't they help us before?" Reyes asked, jaw clenched. "Why leave us to burn alone?" "They weren't sure," Echo said. "Until now. Until you." A star flared in the center of the map. The Arcforge's new coordinate signature. Earth's legacy. They know humanity is real now, and that the old enemy has reason to fear. Over the next several days, we made contact. Encoded signals buried in quantum-layered threads. Secret languages encrypted in subspace harmonics. Each message we sent was an act of faith. And one by one, they answered. The first was the Zarkathi Enclave, machine-organic symbiotes who had merged with a stellar nursery to avoid detection. They welcomed us with a transmission of data, so vast it took our fastest AI 3 days to translate a greeting. The second was a Volari Fold, beings who lived inside black hole event horizons, using time distortion to evade Reaper awareness. They spoke in probabilities and sang in future tense. But the third was human. The ship came out of nowhere. A single vessel. Old Terran hull, pre-Exiled design. Carbon-scorched. Rusted, but alive. We hailed it cautiously. The reply was simple. Visual only. A woman appeared. White streaks in her hair. Eyes like a Martian storm. "This is Commander Aisha Varun, Terran Exploration Corps. Protocol, Echo Phoenix. If you're receiving this, then Earth survived." We stared in stunned silence. Aisha Varun had vanished 143 years ago. Her ship, the Sunspire, was thought lost beyond the Veil Nebula. But here she was. Not a ghost. Not a simulation. She'd lived through it all. She docked with us aboard the Valiant Horizon. When I met her, I expected grief. Bitterness. What I got was fire. "You've done what the Council feared," she said, clasping my hand. "You turned exile into evolution. You're not surprised?" "I'm human," she said, smiling. I expected nothing less. She brought maps, warnings, names of Reaper subtypes we hadn't even encountered. She fought them, evaded them, even wounded them. "There's a weakness," she told us, projecting a lattice of overlapping Reaper structures, a point they all avoid, a system older than even the Arcforge, the core of the Silent Accord. We called it Erebus Reach, and it was calling to us. Fleet Command debated the move for hours. Reyes and I fought hard. He argued caution. I argued opportunity. "They sent us to die," I said. "We didn't. Now we don't just survive, we lead." Laren chimed in from Tactical. "We don't even know what Erebus Reach is." Could be a trap. Good, I said. Let it be. Because if we don't walk into traps now and then, we'll never spring them ourselves. And then the vote passed. We prepared the Exodus fleet for its greatest jump yet. Through 3 distortion corridors, 1 artificial gravity river, and into what may well have been the heart of the Accord. We arrived in silence. No welcoming ships. No signals. Just a dead system. 7 shattered planets, 1 sun dimmed by Reaper siphoning. In its orbit, a structure. No, a monument. A sphere the size of Jupiter. Black as obsidian. Etched with scars like claw marks across space-time. An ancient Reaper, dead and dormant, half merged with Machine City. This is an Erebus reach, Laren whispered. This is where they killed one. It had taken 1,000 civilizations and 100,000 years. But they'd done it, and they'd left the body behind. As a warning, or maybe a promise. Reyes crossed his arms. We came here looking for allies. What we found was proof. Proof of what? I asked. He turned to me, voice steady. That even Reapers die. And in that moment I understood. The Council had exiled us to keep us from waking the stars. But now we'd found the truth buried in their shadows. Humanity wasn't just ready to return. We were ready to rise. We returned not as exiles, but as fire. It began with a ripple, a subtle wave of gravity distortion that passed through space like a whisper. At first, the Council ignored it, just another anomaly outside Union territory. Then came the light storm, 1,000 stars blinking out of alignment, sensor ghosts, silent systems. Then came the message, just 3 words, sent on every known channel, in every known language. Humanity is coming. Back on the Valiant horizon, we stood at the edge of Erebus Reach, gazing at the shattered Reaper monument that had changed everything. Behind us, the Exodus fleet was no longer a refugee convoy. It was a fleet of nations, reborn. New ships had formed in the days following our arrival, grown, not built, woven with Arc-Forged code, and seeded with knowledge from the Silent Accord. Ships that could bend time for a heartbeat. Ships that could think. Ships that remembered. And humanity, finally, remembered who we were. The Council tried to reach us. Softly at first. Polite inquiries from diplomatic channels. They wanted dialogue, reassurances. We sent them the same message we'd given the stars. We're coming. Then came the threats. Ultimatums. Warnings of sanctions, planetary quarantines, interstellar embargoes. Reyes played them on a loop for the bridge to hear, arms folded, smirking. They still think we're afraid of walls. They still think we're inside them. I muttered. The Silent Accord began to move. For centuries, they had waited, watching, holding still, scattered, isolated. But our survival had changed something. Hope, perhaps, or simply momentum. The Zarkathi began opening star tunnels. The Valari twisted time in our favor. And the once hidden fleets of the Accord began to converge, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The Reapers stirred in the dark. We could feel it now, like static on the skin. They knew, but they weren't ready, because this time we weren't alone. And Earth? Earth was watching. We hadn't seen her skies in years, not since the exile. But now, finally the veil lifted. We sent the first transmission on an encrypted relay, bouncing across black holes, folded through void paths, piggybacked on gravitational echoes. The message hit Earth like thunder. We are not lost. We have returned. Prepare to rise. The response came from a dozen scattered leaders, a dozen fragmented governments, long since fractured by isolation, and they all said the same thing. Welcome home. Our fleet emerged not in secret, but in light. We breached Council space openly, above the neutral planet of Silterra, site of the original exile vote. The same Council chamber, the same cold stares, the same fear. But this time we didn't beg. I stood before them, not in a suit, not as a diplomat, in the armor of the Accord, the armor of memory and fire. You exiled us to silence, I said, my voice echoing through their ancient halls. But silence breeds storms. And now, the storm has learned to speak. Humanity, The Alari spokeswoman croaked. "You are in violation of—" "We're not part of your laws anymore," I said. "We outgrew them. You defy the core principles of this council." "No," I said. "We remind you of them." Behind me, in orbit, our fleet shimmered. And then the Accord appeared. One by one, they decloaked. Alien designs never seen before. Star fusion vessels with gravitational sails. Time-fold arcs shaped like knots of energy. Living dreadnoughts that hum with songs older than matter. The chamber fell silent. The council was no longer presiding. They were witnessing. "You thought exile would break us," I said. "It made us infinite. We're not asking to return. We're offering something greater. A chance to rebuild the galaxy not in fear, but in fire. The Accord stand with us. And the Reapers fear us." In the silence that followed, I looked out through the viewing window. The stars stretched endlessly before us. Still dangerous, still unknown. But now they weren't empty. Now they were ours. Because humanity had been forged in exile and returned not as victims, but as the spark that would set the galaxy ablaze.